Hello viewers and welcome to the second episode of Current Medicine, the web series. I'm your host, Rob Vanbergen of Pain Free for Life, and today Dr. Hache and I are going to discuss the immune system. This is our incredibly complex defense system that keeps us going in a world in which we are constantly under siege. In learning about the immune system in this way, we can determine how it functions and how it malfunctions, as well as gain an understanding of how we can best manage our immunity, regardless of circumstance, and ultimately keep ourselves healthier and pain-free for life. So, welcome. So, as I said in the introduction, I'm here with Dr. John Hache, and I'm Rob Vanbergen, and we are looking today at the immune system. So, on this slide, we're going to take a brief look at what it is we're going to go over in however long it takes to get through it all. So, and it's quite big. It's a big topic.
It's a big topic. Yeah.
So we're going to look at our immune system at a glance. Then we're going to look in depth at each of the key players in our immune system. And when I say in depth, I just mean we're going to look at each one. We're not going to, go down as far as we could.
Not into the chemical processes, no.
Yeah, no. We're going to look at the complement system, the inflammatory response, and whether you have an overactive or underactive immune system, keeping our immune system in balance, dealing with a weak immune system, maintaining an overactive immune system, and dealing with autoimmune disorders. And then, of course, we're going to recap all of this so you don't have to take notes throughout the video.
Yeah, I think this is great because in general, you'll have to do an awful lot of research, a lot of biology studies to be able to get what we're going to present today.
Yeah, I think so too. I think even just in preparation for this, this video probably took 3 or 4 weeks to get the pieces put together. Because there's a lot of unanswered questions about the immune system.
Yes, there is, particularly when it comes to the body attacking itself.
Yes.
And there's not a very good explanation about that.
No, not at all. So we're going to get into that today. So let's see what we got next. Okay, so we've got a nice little angry white blood cell with a sword and shield. So we're just going to briefly touch upon the benefits of a strong immune system. I mean,
it's like a military force. It's like you've got in there everything from what I call rent-a-fuzz to primary guys that walk around and snoop around all day looking for dead, dying cells or for invaders of some kind, and then they communicate that information off to even the SWAT team and to the full and there's a
call
full
in the military. Yeah.
So it's quite a complex system and extraordinary. And a strong immune system means that you are well protected.
It does. And you think about it, even sitting where we are right now in this room, we are under attack.
We're totally
under attack. Yeah. Every time I breathe in, something's trying to get in. My skin is covered in bacteria and probably viruses, all sorts of stuff. These things all want to get in, and it's my immune system that stops that happening.
Yeah, totally. It controls everything, even the bacteria in your gut, so on and so forth. All of these things are under control of your immune response.
Yeah.
And when that goes bad, one of a million things can make their way into your body, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, all hell breaks loose. I think, and that's sort of what we're just saying in the slide here. When your immune system functions well, we can stop an attack. We won't even notice we were under attack by a virus. And this will explain why a person with a strong immune system can be among a bunch of sick kids with snotty kids and not catch that cold. Their immune system is either memorized the cold, or you just have a healthier body, a strong system.
It seems to be general knowledge that we're all packed with germs, bacteria, fungus, all kinds of invaders that really want to do us harm. And the fact is, even cancer cells, rogue cells, we have all kinds of things going on in our bodies, and the way we keep that balance and how we win the fight at the end of the day is with a strong immune system.
Absolutely. And we're going to look at the components of an immune system in a second here. So the key players in our immune system, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is really going to be a breakdown. Slide says we could probably do a 24-hour video going into depth on all of the different players in the immune system. I don't doubt that. But we're going to try and keep this really short and just focus on the really key players here. We're not going to touch on everything because that would just be, we could run an entire class on that alone. So we're going to be discussing the skin, the complement system, which most people have never heard of, macrophages, neutrophils, dendritic cells, T cells, B cells, antibodies, memory cells. We'll discuss these things, the role they play, because that is going to help us have a better understanding moving forward in the presentation.
It's kind of funny because a lot of people will go out, get blood work done, and then they look over their blood work. They're now allowed to have it and look at it. And they look at all of these neutrophils, they look at the macrophages, all of the definition of their immune system, what they don't even know, the majority, what these things mean, what they are.
Yeah, you just
want to see if the blood, if the little the check mark is in the right place.
Yeah, am I right or am I not?
Am I good or am I not good?
Yeah, and all of these things play different roles, and it's actually, they could make a series of Hollywood movies about the cells and what they do, because the different roles they play are so cool, and cells look crazy cool. The system is fascinating. Any biology nerds,
Almost like I don't know if you've ever seen a movie where they nanosized this submarine, and they put people in there like doctors into this submarine.
I've heard it seems familiar.
Injected into the body, and it gets attacked by the immune system.
Yeah,
monsters of all kinds.
Yeah, and they do look kind of monstrous. They do. All right, so the primary part of our immune system is our skin, right? I mean, it makes sense. It's a barrier.
Yeah, it keeps everything that's us inside and everything that's not us outside, including all kinds of bacteria.
Yeah, so it shields us from all that stuff, and you can see sort of here in the image a wound.
Right.
So that is a break in the skin.
Yeah, and the bacteria are all starting to pile in there in a hurry.
And so then from the bloodstream that we have the leukocytes being like, well, we got to go check out what's going on here and see what's going on.
Yeah.
They're going to go there and they're going to create what? They're going to create an inflammation around there, try and burn them out. They're going to just try and eat them. They're going to send signals for reinforcements. These are all at a basic level.
Well, yeah, it's easily defined by actually heat and swelling. As there's going to be pain, definitely. It's going to be a lack of or loss of movement. All of these things are all associated with inflammation.
Yeah.
As it happens, particularly in an acute case like this.
Yeah, and I think the main reason I brought up the skin, because to a lot of people it's obvious. Some people, they don't even think about it. But people that have dry skin, eczema, psoriasis, and I know that we have clients that have that, but there's loads of people who have these conditions. That means your first barrier of your immune system is essentially breached.
It's a breakdown, yeah.
Right. Why I wanted to draw attention to this is because, that should be a very, important thing, because if you've got dry skin everywhere, you have multiple entry points for invaders, and then you're going to be splitting the attention of your immune system and directly weakening it. But also, I assume, John, and you can clarify this for me here, I assume that the eczema itself is going to draw attention from the immune system because it's a wound.
Well, the eczema is actually most of the time an allergy. And allergies are simply a multiplication of your defense system that becomes overactive. We'll talk about overactive.
We will. So,
and if you look at, like Olivia had last night, they came to me and she had this oozing eczema on her eyelids.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh my God, there's something that you're putting on. And I think a lot of women that use different makeups, different things.
There's allergies to those.
There's a lot of germs that build in the pots that they have over time. So they just add bacteria to it. So and the body can respond to that. And of course she ran off to see the doctor immediately to see what was going on, because she couldn't even open her eyes in the morning, and they wanted to put her on a hormone-based remedy. And I said, no, let's try one of our products first of all. And she woke up this morning completely clear.
Yeah. Well, and this is the other thing here. Same thing with psoriasis, which is, really bad. Psoriasis is a terrible skin condition.
That is a terrible skin disease. People that have it suffer terribly from it. And you'll see that the drugs that are prescribed for psoriasis are pretty powerful drugs that can cause a lot of problems. They actually suppress the immune system.
Yeah, and then you weaken yourself even more.
That's right.
Now, the thing is we have a skin health supplement kit.
Yep.
It's 2 products. One is a pill, or capsule, and one is cream. And these two things, when combined together, we have seen them, or our clients have seen them, reverse psoriasis. You know, we've got psoriasis to go away, and eczema, as you say, the cream can beat back in a day.
Yeah, like overnight, it'll change everything.
Yeah.
Of course, I use a homeopathic remedy and the cream, so I think they work hand in hand.
In tandem.
And so that within 24 hours, to have it totally cleared up, where that other stuff would have actually thinned the skin so badly, and the skin on the eyelids are already
It's already thin. Yeah.
You start putting this stuff on it, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so it's just something to think about if you're a person with dry skin, eczema, psoriasis. These supplements could be a game changer for you because they have been for a lot of other people.
Yeah, we've seen a case where I think one lady had this eczema on her feet, on the soles of her feet, so bad she couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And that was one of the only things that actually
cleaned her up. And it was really the capsules, taking those capsules.
That's right. Yeah.
And it keeps it at bay too, so it keeps your skin healthy. So the reason that is highlighted here is this. You know, if you look at that picture again, any open wound, you're
come on in.
Yeah, come on in.
Let's have a party.
Yeah, and the more you have, then the worse off you're going to be because that immune system has to work hard at every site to fight off invaders constantly.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Okay, the complement system. I wish I knew more about the complement system. So these are sort of the unsung heroes of our internal battlefields, right? So the complement system is an army of over 30 different proteins that are floating around our bloodstream all the time. Now, there are over 15 quintillion of them floating through our body at any one time. I have no idea how you even get to a quintillion.
That is like crazy.
That's crazy, right? And these things, they're really, really dangerous. They've been described by a lot of people, scientists and the like, as tiny bombs in your blood. But the thing is these bombs, they don't affect our own cells, because our cells will notice they're there, and they try to latch onto our cells, and our cells kick them away and say no.
Only because of the electrical charge, right?
Because they are electrically charged. Yeah. And so if we don't have that electrical charge, or if it breaks down, then this can be a contributing factor to
just like a magnet.
Yeah, exactly. They stick on there, and they don't actually explode. What they do is they activate themselves, and they build like an oil platform, like an oil rig on your cell, and they keep attracting new ones. And that gets bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually you've got a hole in there, and then all the fluid in the cell bursts out, and the cell dies. And this is what it does when it works well. It does this to our invaders, bacteria, viruses, and it sticks to them. It helps other cells be able to get in there and eat the bacteria. When it works badly, I think, you know, we're just having little explosions.
So if I understand it well, anything that would interfere, because what we're seeing is electrical charge, that the cell has a positive or a negative charge.
Yeah.
And the positive charges will push anything that's positively charged away. So that's a safe system. But any electrical charge coming from the outside that interferes with that.
Yeah, then that's going to be a problem.
Blood clots, everything else, everything starts to be attracted, and we have an explosive situation.
We do. And I think I've got another slide on it, so I'm going to switch to that one. We'll continue talking about it. Yeah, so on a base level, it does a few things. And this is so complicated. Like, complement is so complicated that you have to look at each protein breaks up into several different proteins, and you can sort of see here, though the image is a bit small, these little structures that have started to be built here.
Yeah.
And those are all made up of different proteins that bump into each other when they're activated, and they can be activated by threats or by other proteins. So we have these activations, they build on the cell.
Or an electromagnetic field that's going a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
It's all about information.
It is. It totally is. And here in this image, this is a pathogen. It's got a bunch of proteins stuck to it. It's got a bunch of complement stuck to it. Eventually, they're going to start draining the fluid from the cell and kill it. And, you know, so between that, sending for help from the lymph nodes, it does that as well, and just swarming a cell so it can't do anything. If you think about it, if a cell gets enough proteins on it, it can't get onto anything to eat it. So bacteria is unable to proceed doing its job, right? It's just like, I can't eat anything anymore because you've covered my mouth in protein.
In this protein.
Yeah. And I had one educator described it as, imagine yourself covered in a swarm of flies. So what would you do in that swarm of flies?
So that kind of protein then at some point has to be broken down.
Yeah.
So the body needs to have these proteolytic enzymes
to break through.
To break this stuff down, right? Or
Yeah.
else it becomes a threat to the body.
Yeah. Yeah, because it totally is a threat to the body if we leave it unchecked.
It may be a cause of inflammation itself.
I think it could be, because we're seeing these, as you say, if it gets attracted to our own cells and it starts to rip holes in them, and does it clear out the debris, or does it leave the dead cells? And we know what dying or dead cells lead to in our body, right?
Well, we've lupus, I think, and other autoimmune diseases are actually where these dead cells are not, and I think it's part of this problem right here.
Yeah, I think so. This is a swarm. They're not really that good individually, but when they swarm up, they create big issues for enemies and big issues for us if they don't work correctly.
If they don't work correctly, if they pile up, and then you get all of this debris in your body that needs to be broken down. This is where proteolytic enzymes comes in.
Yeah.
And I'll talk a little bit more about proteolytic enzymes, because we actually, in that immune support, we actually have proteolytic enzymes in there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're on to the actual immune system, if you want to call it that. Some of our army, as John calls the macrophages, the rentafuzz, with their flashlights.
Yeah.
These guys, they come in, they find the intruder, they swallow them, trap it in a membrane, and dissolve it.
And call for help.
Yeah. They also will cause inflammation. They use little messenger proteins to get blood vessels to send water into the area, which makes it easier for them to get around and fight, because these guys are pretty slow, so they need that lubrication to get around. This will show up to us as little mild swelling around wounds.
That's right, yeah.
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 And the thing is when they fight for a long time and they can't overwhelm the invader, they signal for help. Right? And as John painted a nice little image, they're sitting there beating things with their flashlights, and then they're like, there's too many of them, help us! So then they call for help. And I'm just going to minimize our little video here so you can just see the rest of the slide. So the thing that comes to help is the neutrophils. They come to the rescue. They abandon their patrols in the blood vessels to assist the macrophages. And we're going to talk about those next.
Yeah.
So the neutrophils, these guys look really, really cool. They release chemicals that kill healthy cells as well as the bacteria. So they're a good and they're a bad thing.
Yeah, friendly fire.
Exactly. That's why we prefer to deal with things with the first guys.
Yeah. Friendly fire ain't that friendly, really.
Yeah, no. They'll create barriers that trap and kill bacteria, and they're actually so deadly that they actually have a lifespan of 5 days, after which they commit suicide to prevent unnecessary damage to the body. I wonder, though, if they always commit suicide, or if they stick around, because this has been a curiosity point for me.
Yeah, if they don't get the signal.
Yeah.
They need that signal.
They need that signal, and maybe if their programming is messed up, they don't know what to do. And,
exactly right.
And then they just keep floating around. As you say, they're killing your healthy cells as they go.
Yeah.
So if they're not enough to stop the invasion, though, then they move on to the dendritic cells.
Which is interesting when you're looking down your blood work. Take a look at your neutrophils to see if they're in the balance.
Yeah. Are they where they should be, or do you have too many of them going on?
Yeah, too many. You know they're killing your cellular white blood cells.
Yeah. Okay, so dendritic cells. So these cells are sort of like researchers, I guess.
Well, yeah, they're almost like secret agents going out.
Yeah.
And sending little bits of information back to the main headquarters.
Yeah.
So do you recognize any of these guys?
And they do it in a little bit of a creepy way. Some have been described as they'll like wear the body parts of the enemies. So it's like, oh, take your arm and your leg. And yeah,
they recognize this one.
they look at them. Yeah, exactly. They think, oh, this is I recognize this leg. So they have to make a crucial decision. I don't know if they ever get it wrong, or I mean, I assume that they're fallible, just like people.
Well, it all depends on signals.
Yeah.
And the signals are usually receptors on these cells, and then you've got electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
So like the cell, for example, and what's cool about the white blood cells, they're wireless.
Yeah, they're just moving around our body, right?
Yeah, when you think about all your other organs and systems, they're all wired.
Yeah.
but not the white blood cells.
No, they work on their own.
They work on their own, so you're hoping that they're doing the right thing.
Well, you are, and in this case, they have to make that decision as once they've got their arm and they think, I think I recognize this, they have to say, this is a virus, or this is a bacteria. And if whatever decision they make,
this before,
has it gone wrong?
And this was, and this is where we're hoping that the vaccines from, are doing their job. They they create the enemy, then they attenuate it, and then they create the memory for it, and then you go back in time and say, oh yeah, I saw this in 1947.
Yeah, and that's sort of how they work. And that's what they're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, that's
right. And so it says, yeah, I know this is a virus, and it fires off.
Yeah. Specific kind of virus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll send it off to the closest lymph node, which it takes about a day actually to travel there, which just sort of shows how long it takes.
Yeah, this is rhinovirus number 14 we saw back about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you had it then, 10 years ago, then they'll haul it up and say, yeah, we recognize that. Here's the combination of chemicals we need to
kill it. Yeah.
That's right.
And this is where they go as well. They're sent to the lymph node. They take the closest one. It takes the helper and killer T cells there. That's when they're gonna kick into action.
Oh, they get a SWAT team.
Yeah, we're getting the SWAT team. So to become an active T cell, the cells have to sort of go through like a boot camp.
Yep.
They about three quarters of them die in training. So it shows you how hardcore these T cells are. They're your not even your SWAT team. They're your special forces. Your
Rangers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when the dendritic cell goes to the helper T cell, it's looking for one that is, as we said here, they have that aha moment in their collaboration where they say, oh, that is rhinovirus number, yeah, right? Like, I know what this is.
14, yeah.
And then from there, the helper T cell is activated, and it just starts cloning itself. It's just like, okay, I'm going to clone myself and clone myself and clone myself. So these T cells, once they've been activated here, they'll either become memory T cells that stay in the lymph node, so that we make sure we have our little researchers in there, so that next time someone has a problem, they can come back and they can say, oh yeah, I recognize this, because we don't want to use all of our helper T cells memory and then forget about this virus, because chances are we're going to come across it again.
Yeah.
Right. So those will stay in the immune system.
Right in the memory bank, so that we can recall.
Others, though, are activated and travel to the field of battle. There's even more that will actually go to the center of the lymph node to turn on the B cells. So let's look at the next one. So B cells. So when a B cell and a T cell with the same set meet, they become a force to be reckoned with. And essentially, what the B cells do is they start creating like missiles and ammunition and all sorts of stuff that are what we are going to do to really beat back this thing that they've come together and recognized.
This is like the super chemical it's not only an office, but it's a plant where they put these things together and okay, this will get them.
Yeah. And the thing is they take so much energy. So that's something important to remember. We're going to have to continue to keep our energy up.
Yeah.
They take so much energy to do this that they actually would die from exhaustion really, really quickly. But then the helper T cells sort of go up to them and give them a high five and say, "You're doing great, buddy. Keep going." And then they get re-energized and they keep spitting it out.
This is where we have to recognize one of the things that's very, very important. Whatever you're fighting, whatever disease you're fighting, and that your immune system can get depressed simply through fatigue. So we need to keep up the energy.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where we do an awful lot to do that, and that whole protocol that we've designed, that's called the immune protocol that we're going to run into, that's actually designed to help increase the energy.
Yeah, and that would be essential to keep this energy going, because otherwise,
keep these guys going, keep the B cells going. Yeah.
And if you got to remember, right, this is a war, and if these guys start to falter in their numbers and fall back, that's when we're really in trouble. Because it may not feel we get a sniffly nose and a bit of a cough, but they are going all out. Like
it's all out. It's all out war all the time.
Yeah,
and maintaining that immune system is priority. whenever, and you feel, you hear it in people's words. They say like, I feel so defenseless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so weak.
Yeah.
I just don't have energy. And the first thing you want to do is say, wow, your immune system's starting to falter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just the way it is, right? You hear that all the time. People that are sick with anything, they feel fatigue, they feel weak,
Yeah.
and it's because they are just fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting inside. So even if you're resting outside and you're staying in bed and you're keeping, trying to keep yourself healthy and hydrated, your body's still going all out.
It's going all out. You need to be creating an awful lot of ATP, an awful lot of energy to make these new cells to keep everything going, and you need to have an adequate amount of protein as well to make these new white blood cells. That's what they are, protein.
Yeah, and I'll just touch on ATP quickly because it's not really something that's brought up within this presentation in general. But a production of ATP can be increased by blue stimulate pretty well, right?
By blue stimulate, what you want to do, or vaso is a great one for that because it dilates the blood vessel, increasing the volume of oxygen.
Yeah.
And the volume of oxygen at the ATP will actually transform the energy to be able to create these new cells. It takes a lot of energy to keep the whole system running. So you need a lot of ATP at times. So there are certain programs that we have that will increase the volume of oxygen. So that's why we say get fresh air, get out there. Don't stay in a room that is not oxygenated.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're better off getting all of the air, all the oxygen that you can out of that air to be able to produce these new cells. More ATP, more energy, and more chances of being able to survive this ongoing war.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And just as a final thing here with the Bcells, it says at the bottom of the slide, when the weapons are no longer needed, they just turn off. And it's to conserve energy because they are consuming so much of your body's energy that, that they're only turned on when they're really needed, right?
Exactly right.
All right, so antibodies. So these are these are like the weapons that are created by the Bcells. And these guys, they all sort of look, I don't know, how would you describe them? They look like a couple of crowbars stuck together.
It's kind of funny. They're like weaponless little critters that jump out the enemy's legs and hold them down.
Yeah, they do. And that's it, right? That is, as I say here, antibodies have the glorious job of swarming the invaders, slowing them down, and making them easier to grab and destroy. That's
pretty well what it is.
They're just like, okay, so the Bcells create all these antibodies, throw them at the bacteria. The bacteria is like, help me, I can't do anything. And then a white blood cell comes along and has an easy target, finishes it off.
These guys are hanging onto their legs.
Yeah, and the great thing as well about antibodies, I don't think it's, I mean, obviously it's great that they make them easier to grab, but their main thing that I think they do that's great is that by covering them up, they actually do, just like complement can, help to stop them continuing to reproduce because they can no longer go and start eating our healthy cells and infecting them. Right? They just sit there waiting to be eaten.
Yeah. So lots of antibodies, good thing to a certain extent. Everything has to be balanced.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Balance is important, and we will get on to balance shortly because too much of anything.
Yeah. You end up with a crowd.
Yeah. Okay, memory cells. So we've briefly touched on this as well. So these come in both B, so your weapons factories, and T cell versions.
This is your SWAT team.
They're what remains after we finish a battle. They get promoted and they go back and they sit there and they reminisce and they say, I remember the time I fought chicken pox. And the other one says, oh, yeah?
Yeah, I got it in my memory bank.
Yeah, I got it in my memory bank. And so then the next time we get that in our system, these guys are like, oh, you youngins, I fought this back
10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, 10 or 15 years ago, I fought this. I know exactly how to beat them. Here's the battle plan. And then we don't even really experience the infection because they already know.
It's those famous colds that, you get the cold and you're well in 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's because it has recognized these memory cells.
In the time it takes them to send that signal to the lymph nodes, the memory cells are like, yep, there's the exact strategy to beat these guys, and we're done. That's it.
That's why I think a lot of people are starting to discuss the environment that our children grew up in. That they want them to be eating dirt and all kinds of bacteria. Go to these parties, get infected, get everything that you need, so that the memory cells
Well, and it's still the case in England. I know in the US and Canada, it's a big thing to get vaccinated against chickenpox.
Yeah.
In the UK, I still see my family members. They'll talk about it. They'll say, oh, my young kids got chickenpox. Bring over all yours. It's just about that natural exposure, and that's how it was when I was younger, and I believe it was how it was when a lot of people were younger
Because
too.
it's so much easier when you're younger to defeat that kind of virus. That let's have a party, let's get them all.
Everyone can be sick for a few days, and then
you don't want to get it when you're 13, 14, 15.
No, you don't. No. You don't. Definitely not. All right, so that's the end of that. But so what? Well, those are the key players in our immune system. So if nothing else, I think it's interesting to know like what goes on in there.
Yeah, well, I hope our carryings on
amuse people enough that they're not bored.
That they'll say, oh, well, it's not only not bored, but at the same time, it gives you kind of a
reference point?
graphic reference point.
Yeah.
Say, oh yeah, I remember those are
those parts. Yeah.
Those are the antibodies, are the ones that hang onto your legs.
Yeah. While the rent-a-buzz beat them with a flashlight, right? But regardless of that aside, the real purpose of this episode of our web series is not to tell you how the immune system works, but to show you sort of what can go wrong and how we can fix it when it does. So I want you to just think about it for a second here. The system is so intricate and detailed that what if we remove one of those steps, right? Like what if one of those components was gone? The whole thing would sort of fail. It would fall apart, right? Yeah. Right? We need to look at this as well and think, macrophages create this inflammatory response, which is a really useful and necessary protective event. We talked about this before. Inflammation in the short run is great.
It's absolutely essential, but it has to be in the short run.
It has to be in the short run. When they forget to turn off that fire, and that's really what it is, they've lit a fire and they've closed it up the doors, and they said, let's let it burn, guys. And, then we feel the pain, but everything inside's dying.
Yeah, it's like the song goes, I'm going to burn the whole house down.
Exactly, and that's what I think it is. So this is where we want to begin. We want to begin with the inflammatory response because, many of you will have heard us talk about inflammation. There's a reason for that. It's not just that we think inflammation is cool. It's that inflammation is likely at the key of everything.
Well, we now know about it. We've talked about it for many years. It's appeared in Time magazine on the cover and so on and so forth. Maybe 16 years ago, nobody didn't think about it.
Yeah,
it was a secret killer.
It was.
That's what the title was on the cover of Time. And here we are, many years later, and we're still talking about inflammation, and nobody's paying a whole lot of attention to it.
No.
What we do know about, and if you get most of the big guys out there, they talk about it as the major precursor to over 4,000 diseases is still inflammation.
Yep. And we'll see that. We're going to go further into that. You're going to see one of the reasons that even what the medical system thinks is the cause of autoimmune disorders based on what they suppress is really not quite, it's one step above the cause.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at what's next. Right, so the inflammatory response. Let me get rid of this little video here so you can see the full slide. So we put out a report some time ago that inflammation, hidden source of chronic pain.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I was kind of referring to it as the commonality of all
autoimmune
diseases was basically inflammation.
Yeah, it's just where does your inflammation manifest, right?
Yeah.
So if you've read this report, then you're well aware of the problems that inflammation can bring. But it's not intended to be a problem. It's a short-term solution, and we see this here in the image. Something harmful enters the body, then we get inflammation to stop anything getting in while it gets healed.
Exactly right.
We start that fire and we say, let's just light it on fire. Nothing can get in. We'll be good.
The heat is an indication of the fire that's going on. Of inflammation.
And people will see this when they do microcurrent treatments. They'll see that heat start to release as the skin gets really red in areas. These little tiny fires have been put out, but then it's like the smoke is there.
Yeah.
So occasionally our whole feverish production doesn't shut down on cue. Right? Sometimes the problem is a genetic predisposition. Other times, people smoking or high blood pressure will keep it going. But in any event, if inflammation becomes chronic, then that is when we start to see the transcendence into something else.
What happens is that the whole inflammatory site, it becomes surrounded. It kind of forms a pouch around it, if you will.
Yeah.
We call it the cellular pouch.
Yeah.
And within that pouch, you see a whole electronic process going on. But like in any life form, there's always going to be some residue. Like if you burn logs in a fireplace, you're going to have ashes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the ashes that come out of this pouch actually will drain out and into the body, and where they land, we'll give it the name of the disease. It's that simple.
Yeah. So yeah. What is inflamed in you, and what does that mean? You know, my joints are inflamed. Well,
Yeah, there's something that let's go a little bit further up and find out what's causing this inflammation. It's not let's try to put the fire out. Let's try to find what the cause of the fire is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I likened it here to, you know, when it's like a child who has a scab and you just got to pick at it, right? That it just keeps having these long-lasting after effects. Eventually, if a kid does that, it's going to lead to scars because they just keep picking that scab off over and over again until it finally just says, okay, we can't heal this. Let's scar it over and we're done. And I think this seems to be this sort of way that these diseases manifest themselves too, right?
Yeah, that whole inflammatory site is kind of interesting from a quantum mechanics point of view, because then you break it down into electrons, aren't you? And these, the material that has been broken down but has not disappeared, we call free radicals.
Yeah.
So the free radicals within that pouch are like free electrons, and the electrons can't ever be alone. Everything has to be in pairs.
Yeah.
So the whole balance of the universe is in pairs. There's kind of, and it comes all the way down. Probably that's why I'm married. So you're married, and we need to have
a pair.
Yeah, or else we would be considered free radicals.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So these free radicals then need these electrons to neutralize them.
Yeah. So, and we essentially we add those back in, right?
What you want to do, like antioxidants, an antioxidant supplement, you're hoping that it's going to have enough electrons gravitating around this ring that it'll lend one of those electrons to that batch to neutralize things. So what we call an antioxidant is an anti-free radical.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But you have to imagine also that what you are taking as an antioxidant will become a radical. Because because if it's donating an electron, it's no longer stable.
So you're neutralizing one thing to create a potential problem later on.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, so the three different things I want to touch upon here: weakened, overactive, and autoimmune. Okay, so
lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff, yeah. And we're going to go into these in depth. These are just overviews, really. So when the immune system works, as we describe them, then, it works really well. And I don't think anyone would want to change that for the world, because I'm sure right now there's something trying to make me sick and it's not doing it.
Yeah, and you're winning.
I'm winning, yeah. It's when I'm losing that I start to question everything. So, if it's overactive or underactive, then that's when I think we sort of start to see ourselves in serious trouble. So overactive immune systems, symptoms of that seem to be things like asthma, eczema, hay fever, food allergies, and I think
that's when we talk about anaphylactic shock, where you can actually die from these things.
Because that's our immune system overreacting.
That's overreactive immune system.
Yeah. So in these cases, my immune system is thinking to itself, oh my goodness, there's pollen in here. And so my hay fever, which is notoriously irritating, it's not as bad as it used to be now that we've been treating it every summer. But, my body says, there's pollen invading. All systems, everyone, all the teams, call them in, and then I get inflammation, I sneeze, my eyes swell up, and it's because my body is just overreacting to that situation.
Well, you may have at some point, what happens is that for every kind of pollen, there's a sentinel that's created. It's almost like a watch guy at the door, and you put a guy over here and you say, watch for that kind of pollen.
And he said, yes, sir.
Yes, then we get another sentinel. I want you to watch for that type of volunteer. Yes, sir. The next thing you know, you've got a dozen sentinels at the door. Nobody can get in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good example of how this happens. Same with eczema, right? It's an allergy, asthma. A lot of the time, asthma is an allergy. It's the same sort of thing.
Well, asthma is almost like eczema that's gone inside the body, where you suppress. So you try to suppress eczema instead of getting rid of it, and you're going to end up with asthma.
Yeah, well, and that's why, what do they say? What do they do if you have chronic asthma? You go to the hospital, they'll give you a steroid. Because they'll say, let's get that immune system kicked out of there, right?
Prednisone and more prednisone.
Yeah.
That's about
same with
antihistaminics.
Yeah, same with food allergies that are long-lasting, hay fever that's long-lasting. I've had that happen to me too. They want to give me prednisone when I've had an allergy that's lasted like 4 days because they're like, well, let's just shut it all off, right?
Let's smother the fire and and hope for the best.
Yeah. So a weakened immune system, that's sort of common, right? I mean, we talked about this. Anyone who is fighting something for an extended period of time, their immune system is going to sort of drop.
Well, like we saw, it consumes a lot of energy.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to maintain that energy, and it's kind of funny because people when they get tired, they have a tendency to go to bed and lie down and cover themselves up, and so they're not getting the fresh air. They're not getting the oxygen.
Well, then they say when you're tired, it's the best time to exercise.
And everybody that exercises knows that. I'm tired, I better exercise instead of I'm tired, I'm going to bed.
Yeah. Yeah, because it wakes you up. Yeah, it really does. So, and then lastly, the last thing we're going to touch on is an autoimmune disorder. And this has been our theme for the last month and going into this month as well.
Yeah.
Signs of an autoimmune disorder could include fatigue, achy muscles, swelling and redness, low-grade fever, trouble concentrating, numbness and tingling in the hands and feet, hair loss, and skin rashes. Sounds awful. And as you say, this is something that is materializing in a different way.
Yeah.
It's also worth making that connection between autoimmunes and a weakened immune system. If you're constantly under attack, then your immune system does not have the chance to be strong, right?
Or you're not responding to it properly, or you're eating the wrong foods, or you're eating pro-inflammatory foods instead of anti-inflammatory foods.
Yeah, and we do tackle all of that in our autoimmune report, autoimmune solutions.
Yes,
if you want to check that out, there'll be links in the video for both that and the inflammation one as well that you can check out. Both are free, both great resources. Okay, so what's next? Yes. So, keeping the immune system in balance.
Love that image.
Yeah, it's cool. I think I have seen someone do something like that before. It takes a lot of practice, right, to find those perfect balancing points. Yeah, exactly. So, what we want an immune system just like that, something that's not going to rock and tilt and fall to pieces.
Yeah.
And there's some really easy things to do. Well, they should be easy for a lot of people. That are just general rules of thumb. Don't smoke. I mean, smoking, what effect does smoking have on the immune system?
Well, it creates constant inflammation.
Well, there you go, right? And so then
the immune system is put under, it's open attack.
Yeah, you got that substance entering your body that shouldn't be. In this case, it's smoke.
Yeah.
It comes in, your body freaks out, sounds the alarm.
And at some point you're not able to produce enough ATP either because your lungs are where you get your oxygen from.
Gotcha. So that's number one there. Eat a diet high in fruits and vegetables. Obviously be careful for allergies because that's counterproductive.
Yeah, there are certain foods like lectins, for example, like tomatoes and bell peppers and that sort of thing. Cashews in the nut family, peanuts. Certain foods will actually create inflammation. They'll create an inflammation in your gut.
Yeah.
And we call them lectins. If so, like tomatoes and potatoes are part of that deadly nightshade family.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're not. Be careful and check it out. If you can't be allergic to things that you're not eating a lot of.
Yeah, and I think it's important to just point out here as well that if you're looking for more information on that, you might want to go back and watch the first episode with the gut health one, because we do go into depth on that as well. So regular exercise, we talked about this as well. I mean, it wakes your body up and, increases your oxygen. It's going to just in
increase your
general.
heart, your
Yeah.
heart rate, your heartbeat, your muscles, and if you just you can't have a healthy program if you don't have, or you haven't incorporated a physical exercise of some kind.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, even a 20-minute exercise actually doubles your brain's capacity for reasoning, for thinking.
Just 20 minutes.
Just 20 minutes. So if you're not feeling quite right, you're feeling a little bit fuzzy-minded, get out there, get on a bike, get out and get 20 minutes of exercise, come back in, you're going to see a whole new light, or shed a whole new light on the subject.
Yeah. If you drink alcohol, drink in moderation. That should go without saying. Alcohol is something people drink, and a lot of people do, and a lot of people aren't willing to give up that one glass of wine a day. And
it may be the underlying cause of a lot of problems, because it goes right to the stomach lining and right into the bloodstream. And here you've got your system saying, I think we've got this fire, under control, and then you throw a bucket of gasoline on it, glass of wine.
Yeah.
And your immune system goes, oh crap,
yeah,
we've got to start all over again.
Yeah, and so definitely, if you're just trying to keep your immune system in balance, try not to drink often, and if you do, don't overdrink, because that's just going to crash everything.
Yeah, if you're going to drink anything, wait till you've got the energy to drink.
Yeah, so and that's why they do recommend not to drink alcohol when you're sick, because being sick, you don't have the energy to deal with the alcohol.
With the sugar content, because alcohol is sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pure gasoline.
Yeah. Adequate sleep. In fact, in our next episode of this web series, we'll be going into sleep entirely, but 8 hours a night is optimum. You don't really want to go above that. I think 8 to 10 is what they recommend. 10 seems a bit over the top.
I noticed that a lot of school kids and adults as well, what they'll do is they'll sort of get maybe 5 hours of sleep. They'll play games and things all night long, and then they'll say, well, I'll catch up on the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently it's totally devastating.
It's worse than just sleeping. Yeah, it'll actually be better for you to just sleep 5 hours like you do in the week than it would be for you to sleep 12 or 14 on the weekend.
Absolutely.
It's got to be confusing for the body if you think about it, right? It's
now under the realm of science. It's been proven scientifically that this sleeping in on weekends is totally disruptive to your cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking steps to avoid infection. Obviously, wash your hands, and make sure that you cook things properly. You don't want things not cooked, because that's not going to go over very well. And lastly, trying to minimize stress. It shouldn't really be last, actually, because I think that's a very important one.
I think it goes with lifestyle, and you have to study your lifestyle and say, okay, if what I'm doing is stressful just because I've got peer pressure going on, maybe you should start thinking about what you should be doing that feels right for you.
Yeah. And I think there's just a note on the bottom of the slide here to say this is super, super important for autoimmune sufferers. Your immune system is already out of whack a bit, and let's make sure we can keep it in balance as best as possible. So if you have an autoimmune disorder, really want to pay attention to this.
Here's the deal: when you're stressed, in constant stress, you create a lot of cortisol, and when you create cortisol, your immune system drops. Your capacity to reproduce. That's why sex and all those things go out the window when you're super stressed. And so when you're stressed, for whatever reason you're going to be stressed about, your immune system is failing as the cortisol builds.
Gotcha. Yeah. So no stress, guys.
Take a look at your lifestyle and maybe even take notes on a sheet of paper and put down the pros and the cons, and say, the pros, these are all the things that I do that are really healthy for me, that I know feel good. The cons are the ones that don't feel right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's that simple, really.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, a weakened immune system. So the longer our immune system fights, the weaker it gets. And so we do look to boosting the immune system. for our immune system to get to this point, as we already said, we have to be unwell for an extended period of time, or it could even be inflammation from an injury for an extended period of time. You wouldn't have to have an illness or a virus or bacteria or something.
No,
right?
we've seen, and I presented, and I also have a book that I've come out with a little while ago on wound healing, accelerated wound healing, and how do you do it? And so we will see that the wounds that we worked on and the images that are in that book are wounds that have been around for years.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, and 5 years. Can you imagine how your body is no longer able to deal with these wounds? And I think at some point your brain just backs off and says, I can't deal with that.
Was that when they close the door and say, don't go in there, guys?
That's right.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah.
It's no longer, that foot is no longer part of me.
Yeah.
It's taking up too much of my resources.
Like that room you need to clean, and you think, well, why don't we just not use that as that room anymore? It could be a storage room.
Yeah.
And you close it off. Yeah. So yeah, wounds, injuries, if you've taken a fall and you broke your leg and you're taking a long time to recover, that's also going to weaken your immune system. It's got to do its work.
Just like diabetes, for example, is nefarious for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, people with diabetes tend to be really susceptible to a lot of
infections
illnesses.
of all kinds, yeah.
Okay, so to boost the immune system, we have a few options, and we're going to share them with you here. 1, supplements, and 2 is microcurrent. You guessed it, microcurrent. So let's talk about the supplements first. Okay, so it's pretty simple, really. We're not going to throw a huge list of doses at you, except for those first 2, because I think those are important.
Like in a cold, for example, vitamin C is what I've been teaching for many years. Is you take a gram of vitamin C an hour for 4 hours. That's 1,000 milligrams. Okay, you take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C 4 hours in a row, and then the next day you do it for 3 hours in a row, then 2 hours. And since then, and that was the Linus Pauling way of being able to defeat a cold.
Okay.
And since then, we're looking at 4,000 or 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C as minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum amounts, because we don't make our own vitamin
We
C.
don't. And we wrote an article on this a while ago. It was like back in January, I think, about vitamin C. And yeah, humans, for some reason, we don't make it. All the other animals, they make their own. And in fact, a goat that weighs less than the average adult man makes 15,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. And that's what it needs to that's when it's healthy. So that's what it needs. So you got to think about that. So when you see these recommendations of take, 50 milligrams a day, I mean, is that just enough to stop you getting scurvy? Is that what it is?
You see what goes in general, they're pretty lively,
Yeah, they are. They're pretty happy. They enjoy their lives.
Yeah. What somebody wants to describe like a goat on AstroTurf. He was unhappy as a goat on AstroTurf.
Yeah, I know, and I think I thought that was a fascinating point. I honestly did, because I thought, well, hold on a second here. So humans, somehow we have managed to evolve with this vitamin that we need, but we can't make it. We've got to get it from other things, and other creatures were able to evolve in such a way that they can make it themselves and make enough of it. That doesn't make sense to me, but that's how we are. So this 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams a day is really a minimum. It's not a it's really not a huge ask. And the worst case scenario is you're going to get a bit of diarrhea, and then you're probably taking a bit too much, and you can dial back a bit.
The way to take vitamin C is go to diarrhea and then back off.
Yeah.
And that's where you've
hit your plateau. You're filled up and you're overflowing, and you're like, okay, I'll back off a bit. Yeah. Vitamin D, It
used to be in medical terms, and they would say, don't take vitamin D, it's dangerous. About 400 units. We've seen these explorers in the far north that actually ate a polar bear's liver full of vitamin D and actually died. And since then, they said, but that was like hundreds of thousands of units, just a crazy amount of vitamin D. But that stuck in their minds. Somebody told somebody in medical school many years ago this story, and then everybody from there on, don't take vitamin D. It's like, don't eat a polar bear's liver.
Yeah, there's a bit of a difference.
Like
Yeah, that would have been more like it. And I think they actually started recommending it now as well.
Minimum. Yeah, vitamin D is like, if you have a problem, an immune deficiency, look at vitamin D as
and the 10,000 IUs per day is that sort of like baseline dose if you have an immune issue.
Exactly.
A lot of it is because we are a lot more inside based now than I think we used to be. I think that maybe we didn't need quite as much back then. What do you think?
Maybe.
I mean, it's a miserable day outside today.
Well, there's a difference between the Polynesian countries where you're running around half naked all day long and 365 days a year. And you wouldn't think of wearing all the clothes that we wear in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And I know if you even go to Florida and you wear anything but shorts, and well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten that before because I definitely don't like shorts in general. So I would be like, oh, wear some jeans.
Yeah, they say, what's the dress code? Shorts and t-shirt. That's what you wear. Only some shirts. But, and it's funny because there they get all kinds of vitamin D and they wear very little clothing. Here we have 250 days of sunshine a day, 100 days of rain almost in a row, and we wear all of this clothing. So where do we get our vitamin D from?
Well, we're not, are we?
We're not.
No.
It depends if you got a big nose or something, you're sticking it outside. No, you're not.
Yeah, we're hiding inside from
and in the wintertime,
snow when
winter
it comes
starts
down.
like in the east, like in October.
Yep. Starting now.
Snowing like mid-October and some places even before that. And that snow finally melts somewhere in April. So you've got mid-October to April.
Yeah.
And you've got these parkas on, you've got these big boots.
So where's that vitamin C coming from? Yeah.
Where are you going to get it? Where's vitamin D coming from?
Yeah, vitamin D. Yeah. So yeah, the vitamin D. That's that one there. We also got glutathione here. You want to talk a little bit about that one?
Glutathione is your precursor. It's your antioxidants.
Okay.
It's your protective. All these protective substances, like vitamin C, for example, part of that the glutathione chain, but there's a whole lot of elements in there. Anything from grapeseed extract, you name it, you know.
Yeah. And these again, as a reminder, these are ways to boost or weaken immune system.
You have to understand that 95% of it's all free radical stuff, right? We're trying to combat free radicals by introducing foods that have those electrons, these extra electrons. But there's a problem there. Is that 95% of your free radicals? Where do you think in your body they are?
Where are they?
They're actually in the mitochondria.
Okay.
Mitochondria is where we produce energy. So all of the energy where you're subtracting, you're taking food and you break it down into electrons. And what's left over is free radicals.
So we're our own worst enemy.
You got 50 trillion cells that all have mitochondria. Some have up to 100 mitochondria. And if you look at the muscle cells, the heart, and all, so your heart, 1/3 of your heart is pure mitochondria, and by weight. So you're going through an awful lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So 95% of the free radicals that we talk about, the antioxidants that you need, so on and so forth, are in the mitochondria themselves. So this is where we need specific kinds of minerals. The free radicals that is all you're doing in the rest of the body is passing the vacuum cleaner, but you're not cleaning the walls of the furnace.
Yeah.
where 95% of the damage is.
Yeah.
So this is where the other stuff comes in.
So we got our immune boosting herbs, echinacea, mint, ginger, garlic.
These mushroom combinations, so on and so forth.
Shiitake and reishi and all those ones, yeah.
So what we really need, and this is where the glutathione plays a big role as well, is actually the cleanup of the mitochondria.
Okay.
I bet you didn't know that.
No. No, glutathione is one that I haven't really run across, so it was interesting to have that added in. Yeah. Okay, next we're going to talk about microcurrent and its role in boosting the immune system. Okay, yeah.
So now we need energy, right?
Yeah.
The whole body's about energy, and if we look at a weakened immune system, we said that the white blood cells originate in the bones.
Yep.
In the epiphysis, and stimulating the epiphysis is one way to get the white blood cells to increase in number. Then they'll go off and become rentifers or
Yeah, they'll get their jobs.
They'll all get their jobs, but they need to start out in the marrow.
And this is where this immune booster protocol starts. If you remember, if the private membership group, you will have seen a video on this immune boosting protocol, which only touches upon the long bones. It's not a mistake. It's just a two-part protocol. So the long bones are great for that. You know, they help produce the white blood cells. But then there's other parts as well, and you can see them here on the screen. You've got the spleen, liver, thymus, and then Pirogov's ring, which is a technique that we do. So do you want to talk about the reasons for those, John?
Well, if you look at certain white blood cells, they're stored in different places in the body.
Okay.
So we look at the storage sites. So the thymus is a gland between the lungs and just below the neck where white blood cells are stored. And when you start out as a young child, as a baby, your thymus is huge. And then it starts to wither away as you age.
Okay.
And that's to protect the baby's first years.
Okay, so it's where they get most of their immune system in those early years.
A lot of their immune system is in the thymus, but it doesn't mean that it dies off. It just withers.
So it's still there, and it still can contribute.
It's a big contributor, and we have thumping of the thymus, so on and so forth, different ways of being able to increase the white blood cell. They're already differentiated, although you might see T cells that have harbored into your thymus.
Okay.
So the killer T cells actually are stored also in the spleen. So the spleen is an organ that filters the blood, and it sits in the upper left part of the abdomen. But this is where you'll find that these white blood cells, once differentiated, will go and sit and wait.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll find them in the spleen.
And we have our bone marrow. We've talked about that one.
Yeah.
So then we've got what about the liver?
The liver is such a big dispatcher of everything.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how many jobs, 500 or something in there. It's a crazy amount of work it has to do. But it also has to boost the transformation of the lymph. And the lymph is where the lymphocytes hang out.
Yeah.
So if your liver's jammed up, then you're not getting the traffic. This is where you'll get some, lymphatic diseases.
Okay.
And Hodgkin's disease, so on and so forth. All these crazy cancers that relate to the lymph. And if you look back in time, you'll say, well, it was my liver that wasn't doing its job.
Yeah. And liver seems to be one of the things that goes first in people, especially if you pay attention to Mead reports. If people are unhealthy in one way, the liver's a flag.
The liver, gallbladder, it's the kitchen. It's the kitchen for the whole house. If you've got a dirty kitchen,
everyone gets sick. Yeah, you get food poisoning.
Yeah.
And then, Pirogov's ring is a technique where you go from the base of the spine all the way around the front.
Just above the thyroid, and you've got all of these adenoids, all of these different glands and things in your neck. Even the sulfur sac that you have in the back over here.
And so you're stimulating that.
You're stimulating
kick it into work.
That kicks in the immune system as well.
Okay, so those are important things for people that are in the private membership. You will, as I said, you'll already have had access to that first part. The second part of the immune protocol is coming soon, and you will see that.
So anytime you're tired or just running out of gas, this is a good program to be incorporating, and it's something that we should use as a protocol in every disease system, because every disease system, you might be not so bad, but you may be just on the edge of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Or immune exhaustion.
And let's just bring this up here because it's been a question that we've received a lot. If someone has an autoimmune disease, they're worried about their body attacking themselves, and we boost that, we are saying that's not a problem with this.
It's not a problem with that at all, and I think there's a misconception again about autoimmune.
And we will get into that shortly. So
yeah, when all the gears are meshed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then everything was working fine, and you don't have to worry about autoimmune disease.
Okay, so let's keep moving. We'll get to that point shortly. All right, so an overactive immune system. We talked about this quite a bit actually in the intro slide. That's an immune system that just keeps going. So it's really sensitive, and it's triggered by things that we probably should consider insignificant, that it thinks are huge threats, like my hay fever, where it's, some people are fine. My sentinels are going crazy when they see pollen approaching, and that's that.
A lot of it is triggered by memory.
Mm.
How many stories have we heard about people that went on a trip and landed on an island? They thought they were back home, and the hay fever took over. They said, "You're not home yet. We don't have those kinds of trees here."
Well, and people that believe they have eaten something they're allergic to, too,
Yeah.
right? Like that can
lobster. I've heard stories of people dying of anaphylactic shock, of just the scent of a substance and not even having it in their own body.
Yeah, and that's their immune system just going, oh my God, alarm's blaring, right?
It's perception.
Yeah.
You are, and in perception, I think that you are a very active participant.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah.
Oh no, that smell will always create an allergic reaction in my body. Oh no, I'm going to go into anaphylactic shock. Oh no,
Yeah.
And then the more you get into it, the more you buy into it, the more danger you get yourself into.
Yep. And I think, by not exposing yourself to something, to little things, you can over time gain problems with them. For example, with me, I used to be absolutely fine with scents and scented soaps and stuff like that. Now I can't deal with them. The world has become so desensitized to that. Everything's a scent-free area, it should be. That now I find that the smell of a scent like lavender is enough to make me sneeze. And that's, it used to be fine with that. I used to have lavender soap all over the place, but now I can't do that. My immune system has...
Yeah, what you're doing is you're creating histamine. The histamine is also part of that system. Histamine is what makes your throat swell, makes your eyes red, it makes your nose snotty and all that. That's all histamine. And bradykinin. These are all other substances that an overactive immune system will use too much of.
Yeah.
And they can shut down. I mean, the first thing that shuts down in anaphylactic shock is your breathing, your throat, your air passages just block up and you die. You've got 5 minutes to get through it. And I've been put into those situations where the person was going into anaphylactic shock, and I had to immediately, without having an EpiPen, epinephrine or adrenaline pen, that sort of thing. And the pen itself says it, epinephrine, adrenaline. So where does the body produce adrenaline?
Adrenals.
In the adrenals. So what organs do I have to stimulate? The adrenals.
The adrenals.
So immediately I was able to do that. And then the suprasternal notch up here was another point that we were able to stimulate, and the person started breathing immediately.
Yeah.
But the thing was, they have never gone back into shock.
Interesting.
Any kind of,
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. So it's almost like at the same time we erased the memory of.
Yeah. Be good to find out how.
Yeah, and it's so funny because that lady is your mother.
What was the allergy?
It was asthma. She used to get, and she would have allergies to latex, to anything like that.
Yeah.
So if she came into contact with anything like that, she would go immediately into anaphylactic shock.
Wow.
And she said, like, call an ambulance, call an ambulance. I said, not this time. She said, who are you? so I said, pulled out my device and off we went. And she's never in 20 years, if you know how often she used to have asthma before.
Yeah, actually. I didn't even think of it now.
You don't even think about it anymore.
Yep.
When was the last time you saw her with asthma?
Oh, I can't even remember. That's how long ago it was.
Before, yeah. Since before I came along.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about overactive immune systems. So an overactive immune system is inflammation. Like, in essence, let's not beat around the bush. Everyone knows we talk about inflammation all the time. I think anti-inflammatory supplements like curcumin, LV curcumin from the Santa shop, can work great for the long term, but our real immediate resolution is that flipping the switch through the vagus nerve, right?
Exactly. It's like putting the brakes on a car. It just stops inflammation, stops the production of cytokines, the major cytokines, which are tumor necrosing factors that we've looked at. If you shut those down, inflammation is impossible.
Yeah, and I think you can even experience that feeling if you're riding on a high beta level where you're stressed, and then you do vagus nerve. It's almost like breathing for the first time. Like you can get a gasp of air. You're like, whoa, what just happened? I feel suddenly different.
When you have a lot of stress, you breathe from the upper region of your lungs. So it's upper thoracic breathing. And when you are relaxed, you're breathing diaphragmatically. And breathing diaphragmatically and taking the onus off of the upper thoracic to the diaphragm will shut the stress down immediately as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, the reason that many people may be watching this is autoimmune disorders. So we can now get into that.
Here we go.
So an autoimmune disorder is one of, is it over 100 now? Different autoimmune?
They're talking about, I know the numbers were about 85, 87.
Okay.
But I think they're talking about way above 100 now.
Yeah, different disorders where our body supposedly attacks itself. So it's like a civil war.
So we've seen all the different elements of the immune system, and what we're saying is something has gone awry.
Yeah, someone in there says, I can't do this anymore, and turns on their...
Yeah, if we have too much of that protein, for example,
it's blowing up.
And that will become a subject of autoimmune.
Yeah, and this is where we're going to go here. But the problem is, you can try and do a ton of research on autoimmune diseases and what actually causes them, and you can't really find an answer. I did a lot of research for this video. I've watched TED Talks, I've broken into biology textbooks, A&P courses, I've done all of that stuff, and every time they're talking about the immune system in such a great way, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be really good, and then they say, and of course there's autoimmune diseases, when the body goes rogue, period. Stop. End of story. That's what, as far as they get. And that, I think, has become sort of the accepted idea, right? Your body is attacking itself. But people aren't really asking the question of why.
No, well, maybe in labs somewhere, but when you're looking for a new drug, you're not asking why.
No, you're just looking for something that fixes the immediate problem, which in most cases is the inflammation, right?
Well, one of the responses that they came up with was, what if we shut down the cytokines?
Yeah.
What if we shut down, certain responses in the body? But that doesn't heal anything.
No.
The methotrexates and the plaquenils and the prednisones and all these things are the only answers that they have, and shutting down your immune system in general.
Yep. Which, as we now know from this video, is not a good plan. We want that immune system to keep going, because the moment we let down our defenses, we're getting invaded by everything around us.
That's right. So they'll tell you it's what they call a disease modification plan. And when you ask them, they'll say, well, no, there's no actual cure for that, for rheumatoid arthritis, for example. But what we will offer you is a disease modification. Now, see.
What's that mean?
Well, you're modifying the disease the moment you're shutting down the immune system. So you mean that you're going to be attacked by something else. You're going to die from something else, but not from that disease. That's what you're doing. You're modifying.
Totally. Oh, yeah, totally.
They call it a DMARD, D-M-A-R-D, disease modification.
It's crazy. And if we hop to the next slide, I think that's when we talk about these cytokines.
Okay.
Yeah, so here they are. So these are the tumor necrosing factors. So this is a primary cytokine that's produced under the command of the central nervous system. So in autoimmune disorders and like wounds, these are produced in the spleen, and they are a primary source of inflammation. So this is what all these drugs turn off, right?
They target TNFs, or tumor necrosing factors. They figure that once these are down, then the rogue cells are put in jail.
And okay, so let's say for a moment, let's humor them and say this makes sense. We're taking these TNFs and we're turning them off, which prevents the TNFs creating inflammation. Okay, fair, right?
Right.
Why do we go that far if we can just prevent the inflammation? Because if we prevent the inflammation, then we don't have the issues, but the TNF still exists to continue to do that job, right?
Right.
Right?
So you want to maintain that system
Of
because
course.
you can see how important it is in its roles.
Yeah.
You've got this is your immune system with what we've just described.
Yeah.
And if you shut this major switch off, then you no longer have an immune system.
Exactly. Just turn off the inflammatory response when you're having that issue. Your immune system still stays intact.
Exactly.
Right. And
I
think
they haven't found a pill for that.
They haven't found a pill for that. Well, they might look at inflammation and throw you with, opioids, deal with the pain from it.
Well, opioids kind of take you out of your mind.
Yeah.
And well, if you look at the NSAIDs or any of the other stuff, what they do is they kind of scramble the signals, and so you're playing around, but at the same time, like NSAIDs or Tylenol or any of these things will cause SIBO or
SIBO.
Small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and it'll also cause antibacterial leaking through the gut, so leaky gut syndrome. These are all. Then you create all this what I call disease modification.
Yeah.
You create all kinds of other opportunistic diseases because you've created an environment that's appropriate for them. But then they'll tell you, yeah, but your pain's gone.
So yeah, you can live for 5 years while you continue to degenerate in
Well,
peace.
your liver's shut down, your kidneys are shut down, even you'll have a spontaneous heart attack for no reason.
Yeah.
But you're out of pain.
Yeah, and it just doesn't make sense. I get that maybe they're looking for their root cause they're going too far. They're saying, well, let's shut down an essential part of the body rather than deal with the thing that causes the problem. Right? They're not looking at the cause of the problem, they're looking at the thing that triggers that cause. It seems genius until you think about the fact that what they're really doing is they are turning off a component of your immune system and weakening you all around.
An electrician, a good electrician, when you call him in, you got electrical problem in the house.
Yeah.
A good electrician will come in and he'll unscrew either, we don't have fuse anymore, but flip the switch for that circuit.
Yeah.
A bad electrician will shut the power off to the house.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Right.
So, are we talking about a good electrician or a bad one?
With the traditional medical system? I'm pretty sure they're pretty terrible electricians. I would give them 0 stars on Google reviews.
No, good.
Because they're coming into the house, to our house, and they're saying, let's just turn the whole thing off, guys.
Just turn it down.
Shut it off.
Shut it down. Yep.
And what we're trying to say instead is, let's just flip that one fuse. Let's turn off that inflammation.
Yeah, and go back and find what caused that switch to flip.
Yeah, and we can keep it off so that the inflammation abates itself. But while we're doing that, we get in there like detectives and we look and we say, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't be eating that. Maybe that's triggered something there.
And the electrician might say, you've got a 15 amp system here, and so it looks like you're using a lot more electricity on that circuit than you should. So what we'll do, instead of taking away things, you'll say, well, why don't we put a 20 amp switch in there? Then you can start using your chainsaw, your power saw, and all your power tools on at the same time. And you go, holy shit.
That's gotta be fun.
That might resolve a situation there, but in the body, you don't have that kind of reserve.
No, the best we can do is to deal with that and then start to build the body up to a place where it can.
Why is that system failing? I can't replace it with a mechanical system.
No, absolutely.
Mechanical heart, mechanical kidneys or lungs or whatever.
Yeah, no.
I need to look at what I'm doing in my life that's causing that switch to flip.
Absolutely. So let's continue on our path of autoimmunes. All right, so the real problem we just talked about all is on the other slide, but that's fine. We can talk about it again. Essentially, we are always hopping on about inflammation. I think that we think inflammation is the core reason that a lot of these problems exist. Inflammation creates a blockage of the electrical communication, which is naturally part of our immune system, and we need to correct that blockage so that we can essentially restore flow, right the body, and get things moving again. I mean, that's
so in principle, what I've been telling people for many, many years is that you cannot heal if you still have inflammation going on.
No.
And we see it now in the description of what we're doing.
Yeah.
It actually shuts down the electrical communication within the body.
Yeah.
So, so one of the majors, anytime you have inflammation going on, we cannot repair.
Yeah.
So we need to get the inflammation down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really where we wanted to go with this slide. Let's see if we're going on to the next one, if we are still on autoimmunes, because it's something I wanted to bring up, which is interesting-ish. So we'll see. Okay, so yeah, these are our methods for doing this. But before we do that, something I discovered about lupus specifically, and among all of this, was...
You studied lupus?
Yeah. Well, it was one of the more focused on autoimmune diseases. And one thing that I thought was really interesting, because you see this a lot with people that suffer from autoimmunes, they go on and on about the brain fog and the mental fatigue that they experience. What studies showed with lupus, and you may be familiar with this, is that lupus is able to, there's antibodies that are actually able to bypass the blood-brain barrier and start to damage the brain, creating cognition issues. They see this more prevalently in lupus, but apparently these are present in all autoimmune diseases. It's just whether they get turned on or not. And the thing that actually weakens the body to the point where they can actually break through that barrier is stress.
Yeah.
And they say, you really need to lower your stress, because that does weaken that barrier and that will allow those in. A lot of people with lupus apparently will experience issues with mapping, being able to find things by landmarks, even in their own house. And that's because these antibodies have managed to break through and they've done some damage to the brain.
What's interesting about lupus as well is I did some research a while ago on Nobel Prize. Mm-hmm. And who won the first Nobel Prize in medicine?
I don't remember who it was, but it was for light, wasn't it?
It was for light, and for the discovery that light cures lupus.
Who was that? Do you remember the name?
He's a fellow from Iceland.
Okay, well, Iceland guy. Yeah, light curing lupus. What kind of light was it? Was it ultraviolet?
Well, at the time, they weren't breaking it down into colors.
It was just light in general.
They were using just light lamps. Because light contains all of the colors. I can't say it was like a red or blue or whatever it does. But it was the whole spectrum.
The whole spectrum of light, yeah. So that's an interesting point there. I think it's worth...
Yeah.
You had something else?
Yeah, a statue to this guy is actually in front of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in London.
Oh, really?
In London, yeah, in London, with him with the lamps.
Holding lamps?
Holding the lamps, and it's a tribute to the first Nobel Prize that was awarded for the discovery of how to cure lupus.
Wow. Yeah, and I think it's well worth noting, that as well as the fact that, reinforcing this stress issue. I really think people need to look at stress and the stress in their lives if they have an autoimmune disorder, because I think that it does stack up. It's very stressful in general.
I'm wondering if that light in general wasn't increasing the ATP production.
Could have been, right?
Increasing energy to the cells.
Allowing them to do their job instead of failing, yeah. It's very, very possible. But there are three basic methods for microcurrent intervention for autoimmune disease. There's a lot we can do, but these are the three sort of like, let's break them down. Vagus nerve stimulation, we've brought that up a few times already. This is great for systemic inflammation. The vagus nerve travels and connects to so much of your body, it just turns off the inflammation. It's the switch we flip, right?
Yeah.
Localized treatment, so surface inflammation. If we have swollen appendages like we see in RA with joints, and we have skin eruptions, which we'll see in other autoimmune disorders, these things can be treated locally with the machine to reduce inflammation. And then we have meridian stimulation, which will help with inflammation of organs and general support of the body's functionality. There was something else you were thinking about meridians and the organs when it comes to autoimmunes?
Well, it
was blockages, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it is blockages, and what turns out meridians are actually like collagen and water-bound collagen. And information flows back and forth horizontally, vertically, up and down these meridians back to the brain, telling the brain what's going on in the rest of the body. If there's any blockages in those meridians, then the brain is not getting the information return. So the brain needs to be omni-knowing all the time about what's going on in the system. So the meridian pathways are now referred to as the communication pathways for the system.
Oh yeah.
So if you got any kind of blockages in there, then the brain doesn't know what's going on.
So you sort of figure those out. One thing I've noticed for myself has been sometimes when my body's really hurting in a specific spot.
Yeah.
You take a look at an acupuncture dummy, and oh lo and behold, that's right on.
It's right on that
It's
meridian.
right on that meridian.
Right at that point.
Yeah.
And knowledge now is generated. I have a document that I wrote many years ago that describes what that point does, why you would want to stimulate that point, what that point is responsible for in the way of systems.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of interesting. I might add it into one of these books one of these days.
Yeah, we'll have to do. It'll be great if we ever have time to do a book on the meridians, but it will be a huge book, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, and then also that this was, this anti-inflammatory support kit was sort of created by a question on Facebook of, if you could choose only 3 supplements to manage chronic pain, what would they be? And this was what you came up with here, was your LV curcumin, your Inflamed, which also contains curcumin, so hint, hint, curcumin's important.
Yeah, but it also contains the proteolytic enzymes.
Yes.
And you remember when we were talking about this protein that kind of adheres?
Yeah.
We
need the proteolytic enzymes to break
it down, or else it becomes a site of inflammation.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, omega-3 oil. We got a really high quality omega-3 oil here that is the sort of thing that it's high dose and it works, right? And these supplements do work. We're always turning them over to different people. And in fact, Inflamed was clinically proven to reduce joint pain and stiffness.
Absolutely, I think it's probably a breakdown of this fibrin or this substance that this glue that we find in our body.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if people can start to use that this support kit more often, they'll start to see better results.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean the omega-3 oils, PG1, PG2, PG3. Do you know the story? Have you heard the process?
I haven't. No.
Threes? Ones and threes, they're substances they found in man's prostate, believe it or not. It goes all the way back. Some guy was curious. So PG1s and PG3s are pro-inflammatory. This is what the cytokines that actually promote inflammation in the body.
Okay.
PG2s, on the other hand, are the anti-inflammatory. When you look at NSAIDs and that sort of thing, what they do is they cancel out the PG1s, the PG2s, and the PG3s.
Wow, really? Turn them off?
They turn all of them off. It's like the imperfect electrician turns the house current off.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So they turn all 3 off. This would be the perfect anti-inflammatory, anti-pain, because it actually increases PG2s, which increases the anti-inflammatory.
Oh, there you go.
So it is like the perfect Aleve or the perfect Advil.
Yeah.
Because it works on the one that you want instead of shutting everything down.
With no side effects, really.
Without side effects.
Yeah. Except for a slight fishy taste.
Well, what they've done with this one is kind of cool. This one is...
They flavored it, haven't they? Yeah.
The citrus one is great because I shake the bottle and I have no fishy taste whatsoever, no aftertaste either.
And none of that burping that people tend to get.
And what you do get is a little bit of a citric taste to it.
Yeah, it was not so bad.
Citrus.
Yeah. Not so bad, not so bad. Yeah, so highly recommend this for anyone that is suffering from inflammation. You get on this long term or even short term for a couple months, you're going to see a huge, huge difference. So it is probably our most popular supplement for that reason.
I know when I had a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis last year, this stuff really turned me around.
It was the thing that kicked it, yeah.
Getting off the lectin foods, the nightshades, I thought were great for me. I used to have tomatoes with my salmon sandwiches.
It's got to be good. It's a vegetable, right?
Yeah, right.
And they taste good.
It was in the fruit and vegetable category, and I'm going, oh, lovely. Only to find out that they were one of the major lectins were a major cause or major source of inflammation in my body.
Yeah.
And by the omega threes and the inflamed
Were huge.
really turned me around.
Yeah.
So now
Absolutely.
I'm totally normal without the prescription drugs or the DMARDs that they want to give me and all that.
Yeah.
I have no problems whatsoever now.
Managed to avoid all of those.
I
Yeah.
avoided all of that, and just with this combination here, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much bringing us to the end of the video, but we'll recap just to sort of bring some of this back to the forefront because there was a lot. It was over an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a big one. So basically, the immune system is a vast, pretty much misunderstood in some ways.
Obviously misunderstood.
Yeah, network of cells. Our white blood cells come in many forms with many different jobs, from our rent-a-fuzz to our SWAT to our military and our special ops. We got all these different guys there. So from our guys beating things with flashlights and the guys holding onto the legs, we got a pretty big, diverse group, to say the least. We've also got the complement system, which keeps us safe from initial invaders. And also is a contributor to our health and well-being, but also could be a danger if we don't keep it clean. Because
exactly right.
Otherwise our little bombs might decide, oh, look at those good healthy cells. Let's explode that because we really need to explode.
That's where the proteolytic enzymes come in. You really need to keep those down.
Yeah. We're also going to need to address what your immune system is doing. Is it weak, overactive? Is it going rogue?
If you're tired.
Yeah. And then you need to boost the immune system somehow. When you do, microcurrent is excellent for that. Supplements can help as well. So look at both of those things. Also, microcurrent is just great at fixing these electrical imbalances in the body that are creating the unwanted inflammation. So rather than shutting off the TNFs and turning off a part of your immune system, we're instead really helping you to get your autoimmune disorders to become pain-free. You still technically would have a diagnosis of RA. You just don't have any symptoms.
Well,
right?
I'm sure it's in my file, but if I went to see the doctor and I said, listen, I no longer have any of these symptoms, and he would send me in for blood tests of all kinds.
You would show up clear.
I would potentially show up clear, but there's a whole lot of aggravation there that I really don't want.
You don't want to go through. Yeah.
I don't want to go through again. So I get out of my life. I'm happy the way I am.
Yeah.
And the way I am is totally functional, really.
Exactly. You don't need someone to tell you otherwise. They'll tell you that you're not, because
no, I do. I do.
The worst thing.
One of the first things that somebody with rheumatoid arthritis is the wrists.
Yeah.
The wrists don't work. Every night before I go to bed, 35 push-ups.
Yeah. So you're getting those wrists.
So I get some. I'm able to do it. I wasn't able to do it before, and I wasn't able to do bench presses. I wasn't able to do any of the weights in the room. I can do all of them now without any problems whatsoever. I wasn't able to do tricep lifts or any of that because I couldn't. Once I got away from him, I couldn't. My elbows, my shoulders.
Couldn't bend.
I couldn't bend at all. All my joints were involved.
All of the inflammation, right?
And normally what the rheumatologist told me, they said, we're seeing a progressive degeneration of your joints. And I said, no, I have to reverse that. So how did I reverse it? First of all, I shut down the inflammation by using vagus nerve stimulation. And the next thing I did is I took the supplements that I needed to get my immune system back in function.
Yeah.
And what I did, the third thing I did, which was huge, was I was able to regenerate those degenerated joints.
Yeah.
Whether it be my knees, my ankles, my feet, you saw how swollen they used to be.
Well, they would have deteriorated and they had to be built back up, right?
Yeah. So I was able to repair all of that.
Yeah.
So not only have I stopped the causal factors, but I've also repaired the damage that was done.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, only microcurrent can do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And let's just not forget, as we just said, supplements do play a big role in keeping inflammation at bay. They also help with mental fatigue and brain fog. And they can help us to boost our immune system. So we don't want to forget the importance of what you're putting into your body. We call them the building blocks, and then microcurrent is the builders. If you don't have the building blocks, the builders are going to keep working, but what are they going to be building with, right?
Hey, they'll say, listen, I don't have any nails.
Yeah.
Keep building what?
Well, they could
hammer it.
they could lean some stuff together, right? Like
I got a hammer. I got no nails.
So that's pretty much it for this one. So thank you for joining us in this very, I would say, extra long, though this is only the second episode of the web series. I can't tell for sure if we're going to be going over the hour most of the time, or if this is just because the immune system is awesome.
It's a huge system, and not only that, but I think that we've run into and we've discussed areas where the medical system has fallen. Really.
Yeah. So it needed to be an in-depth discussion. And these videos are definitely intended to be in-depth discussions. We want them to be for the people that really want to know. The people that just want the answers are not going to necessarily find those answers straight away here. They're not going to be able to watch a 2-minute video and say, this is how I need to do it. This is for the section of people that really want to know.
It's totally educational.
It's totally educational. Yeah. And we do try to give you the actual answers along the way, but to really understand why those answers work, that's to me the important thing, because if you don't know the why, like, what do you have? Right.
All of the people who know how work for those who know why. You know that?
Yeah, exactly. So if you have any questions, you can email us. The email address is on the screen there. You can call us as well. That's our toll-free number, so it doesn't cost you anything to give us a ring. And I just want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because these are only posted on YouTube. Couldn't post them on Facebook with how big they are. So they're only posted on YouTube, and it's important that you are subscribed so that you get notified when the new episodes come out. So
yeah, so the thing about on YouTube, you can go back in and you don't have to sit down for an hour and a half. You can do maybe 15 minutes at a time.
Exactly. You can watch them, pause, and keep going through. So. Yeah. All right, so thank you again, everyone, and I hope you'll join us in the next episode, which should be on sleep. See you in a month.
Yeah, we try to not put you to sleep.
Yeah, or we will, because that might be what you need.
Maybe that's what you need.
All right, thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.